In a small, forgotten town, there was an old mansion that everyone knew was haunted. No one had lived there for decades, and everyone was too scared to go near it except for one man. His name was Dave, a local who loved ghost hunting even though he was not very brave. One night, Dave decided he would prove there were no ghosts by spending a night inside the mansion. He brought a flashlight, a camera, and, strangely, a bag of potato chips for protection. As he walked through the rusty gates, they screeched loudly like they didn't want him there. The whole place felt strange, almost as if it were alive and watching him. Shadows seemed to move just at the edge of his vision, and he couldn't tell if he was just imagining things or if something was really there. But he kept going. Inside, the air was stale, filled with thick dust. His flashlight barely cut through the darkness as he walked down a long hallway with cracked paintings of stern, serious faces. Dave felt like the eyes in the paintings were following him, but every time he turned to check, they just stared straight ahead. He finally reached a big staircase in the middle of the house and stopped, feeling an odd, heavy silence around him. Suddenly, he heard a loud creak from above. Dave jumped and pointed his flashlight up at the ceiling, but there was nothing there. Trying to laugh it off, he whispered to himself that he wasn't scared, even though his hands were shaking as he opened his bag of chips and started munching nervously. Then he heard another noise, a loud, shuffling sound that was much closer this time. He froze, a chip halfway to his mouth, listening as heavy footsteps thudded down the stairs. His heart racing, he lifted his flashlight and saw a large, shadowy figure coming down toward him. Just as the figure reached him, his flashlight went out. In a panic, Dave smacked the flashlight, and it flickered back on. He swung it around wildly, but the shadowy figure was gone. All he saw were the empty stairs. Relieved, he took a shaky bite of his chips, but then he heard something strange. Crunch, crunch. It sounded like someone was eating chips right next to him. Slowly, he turned his head and saw a pale face inches away, with cracked lips stretched into a wide, creepy grin, munching on one of his chips. Terrified, Dave screamed and threw the entire bag of chips at the ghostly figure. The ghost looked almost offended, made a dramatic gesture with its hands, and floated backward as the chips scattered around it in slow motion. Scared and confused, Dave tried to back away but stumbled over his own feet, landing hard on the floor. The ghost leaned down, looking disappointed, and seemed to mutter, "How dare you waste chips in my house?" Suddenly, the whole mansion came to life with ghostly activity. Figures started appearing everywhere, one in a ballroom gown, another dressed like a Victorian butler, all just staring at him. Each time Dave tried to sneak toward the door, they appeared in front of him, shaking their heads like he'd broken some kind of ghostly rule. In one final, desperate move, Dave sprinted to the front door, threw open the gates, and dashed into the night. But as he looked back, out of breath and relieved, he saw the potato chips he'd dropped earlier, slowly floating out of the mansion as if the ghosts were cleaning up after him. Now, whenever anyone dares to go near the mansion, they hear faint crunching sounds from inside, along with a whispered warning, "Never bring snacks unless you're willing to share."